Good evening and welcome to the October 6, 2021 Board of Zoning Appeals meeting. The first item on our agenda is the Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. The next item on our agenda is attendance.
Mr. Jones is trying to join via Zoom.
Okay.
Hopefully he's with us. Let's move on. Ms. Campens?
Here.
Mr. Lake?
Here.
Mr. Monday?
Present.
Mr. Wolf?
Present. Thank you. Next item on our agenda is the approval of the August 4th, 2021 minutes. And actually, we have Mr. Jones, are you here?
I think so now, am I?
Please let the record note that Mr. Jones is also here. We're going to treat these individually. So in your packet, you should have received the August 4th, 2021 minutes. Any discussion amongst the group? If not, I would entertain a motion to approve as submitted.
So moved.
Thank you, Mr. Legg. Is there a second to that motion?
I second.
Thank you, Ms. Campens. I'm going to do this one. We'll just do a traditional vote. We won't do a roll call, but if we need to, because Mr. Jones is present, we will. But all those in favor, please say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, please say nay. Motion passes. Next item on our agenda is the approval of the September 1st, 2021 meeting minutes. Any discussion amongst the group? If not, I would entertain a motion to approve.
So moved.
Thank you, Mr. Mundy. Is there a second to that motion?
Second.
Thank you, Mr. Lake. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, please say nay. Motion is approved. Next on our agenda is continuance or withdrawal requests. Would anyone on our agenda tonight, if anyone's on our agenda tonight seeking a continuance or withdrawal, please come forward, state your name and address for the record.
Thank you, Mr. President. For the record, Mike Gabrielli, 1393 West Oak Street. This is on the Adam Bristol 2021-35 DSV and 2021-36 SE request for special exception and for variance. We are respectfully requesting that this be tabled to your November meeting. The basis for that is that after staff report came out, staff graciously set up a conference call where I could chat with them to understand a little bit better their specific recommendation as it relates to the 3-to-1 lot ratio issue. We decided after we heard staff's thoughts that we could comply with that lot requirement and not have to request that variance. I think it's incumbent on us to do that if there's a way to be able to meet staff's concerns and be able to go ahead and still move forward with our project. So that is going to be withdrawn and our lot line slightly modified in order to comply with that. So that will no longer be necessary. But in order to do that, it was going to take a few days to do that. And we thought it would be prudent. And we sent a letter immediately when we determined that it would be best to go ahead and have that tabled. So we would respectfully request that you do that. We'll be ready to go without interruption at next month's meeting.
Thank you, Mr. Andrew, for the detailed explanation. Any discussion amongst the group?
So we're continuing both, even though I heard withdrawal.
Yes, that my request is to continue it. We will, once we get everything done and submitted to staff, then we'll go ahead and formally withdraw that one. But
Just wanted to make sure I heard that correctly.
yes, Mr. Lake, you are correct. Thank you.
If there's no discussion amongst the group, I would entertain a motion to continue 2021-335 and 2021-36.
So moved.
Thank you, Mr. Lake. Is there a second to that motion?
I second.
Thank you, Ms. Campens. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Those opposed, please say nay. Motion carries. We'll see you in a month.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Is there anyone else on our agenda tonight seeking a continuance?
Yes, Mr. President, members of the board, Matt Price, On behalf of Pulte Homes, draw your attention to agenda item 2021-31 DSV, the Towns at Appaloosa. The petitioner is working through a number of plan revisions relative to this request. In fact, with a subcommittee of the Zionsville Planning Commission, would respectfully request that the variance petition be continued into the November 3rd, 2021 hearing date.
Thank you, Mr. Price. Any discussion amongst the group? If not, I would entertain a motion.
Move to continue 2021-31-DSB to the November meeting.
Thank you, Mr. Monday. Is there a second to that motion?
Second.
Thank you, Mr. Lake. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Those opposed, please say nay. Motion carries. I believe we have one more on our docket side. Do we think they're going to be represented?
She may be attending via Zoom.
Okay.
Yes. Yes, good evening. This is Jill Cummings. You met me last month. I would also like to request a continuance to the November meeting.
Very good, Ms. Cummings. And for the record, you are at 355 West Walnut Street?
That is correct.
Okay, and if we grant this continuance, you are of the impression that you'll put a better petition in front of us. It'll give you time to become more organized and provide all the information we need?
That is correct.
Very good. And is November 3rd enough time?
I think so, yes.
Okay, very good. Any discussion amongst the group? If not, I would entertain a motion.
So moved.
Thank you, Mr. Lake. Is there a second to continuing 2021-30-DSV to the November meeting?
Second.
Thank you, Mr. Mundy. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Those opposed, please say nay. Motion carries. Ms. Cummings, we'll see you in a month. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. For all the board members, we have a couple things on our plate today. Prior to getting new business, which is on our agenda, we've had a couple of special requests. I think we should probably hear those first and get them out of the way and then proceed down our new business. So I will try to tactfully handle these or appropriately handle these, but if I go wrong, Mr. Chad, you will correct me. Very good. Okay, so the first one that we need to address is we had a request from a petitioner due to a personal scheduling constraint to move docket, I believe it's 2021-38-DSV to earlier on the agenda. The agenda is published, and so if we were to do that, we would need a motion to amend or change the agenda for tonight. It's a personal constraint, and I think the petitioner wanted to participate, but limited on time. Any discussion amongst the group? And I would suggest that if that were the case, the agenda would stay as is. We would just move that particular petition to the front of the line.
So moved.
Thank you, Mr. Legg. Was there a second?
Second.
Okay, I heard Mr. Mundy first. Thank you. So we are going to move docket 2021-38-DSV to the front of the line. Oh, I'm sorry. We didn't take a vote on that. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Those opposed, please say nay. Okay, so the agenda will be slightly modified. The next one I want to go ahead and address now. At the end of our agenda, there is a petitioner in front of us that the staff has notified didn't properly notice. I would like to address that issue now, because if we are not going to hear that petition because of that concern, then we should go ahead and let them know that we'll see them in November. But if we are, then they can linger around tonight and we can hear the petition at the end of the night. So with that, why don't we bring that petitioner forward and understand what steps they've taken to address their mailing notification. Please come forward, and we don't want to hear the petition. We just want to hear what you've done to address the notification issues.
Thank you.
Name and address for the record. I'm sorry, I should have led with that.
My name is Angela Hall, and my address is 9805 Equestrian Way.
Okay. And so I understood you took some steps to help alleviate the notification issue. Can you describe what you've done?
Yes, when I learned that I had not properly obtained the full list of adjoiners, I obtained that list I sent out the notice to those on the list that I had not previously noticed via overnight mail. Then I took the additional step of going personally to the adjoiners, with the exception of the HOA adjoiner, who I could not personally speak to, and obtained letters from the adjoiners indicating, one, that they didn't object to the petition, and two, that they did not object to the hearing going forward on October 6th. If you see, the letters are in my packet, I believe, but they state that they recognize that they had the right to 10 days notice, that they were only getting 6 days notice. They did not object to that shortened period of notice, and they did not object to the petition itself, the relief in the petition, but then also that the petition could be heard today.
Okay, thank you, Ms. Hall. So you received some sort of acknowledgement from all the property owners except for the HOA?
Right. I did provide them with notice, but I did not
Get acknowledgement.
Right.
And it's okay, understood. Thank you for the detailed explanation.
Thank
Fellow
you.
board members, we all know the importance. Larry, I should turn to you as well. I don't know where you are. That of the notice. I mean, it serves a very good purpose of allowing adjoining properties to understand what's going on. That a project is going on near them and it may affect them. So we know the importance of that. I do not think there's any malicious, as I understand. I think it was just a misunderstanding. I think the petitioner has done best efforts, but we do need to, if we are going to hear this, we need to have a motion to amend those rules for this particular petition. If not, it will get continued to November 3rd. Any discussion amongst the group?
Well, this will eventually have to be approved through the HOA, correct?
Well, this is not my HOA. This is the adjoining neighborhood's HOA.
I see.
And I'm not exactly sure why they are on the adjoiners list, but my HOA has approved the project.
Okay.
This is the neighboring neighborhood.
Okay.
And I did speak to all three of the individual adjoiners who are a part of that neighborhood, and they provided the letters that they were waiving the notice.
Okay. Great. Thank you.
So I would move that we waive the notification period and accept the notification as explained to us for 2021-40-DSV.
Thank you, Mr. Lake.
Is
Mr.
that
Chad, are
properly
you?
done?
Thank you. Are you okay with that? Yes. Okay. Is there a second to that motion?
I second.
Thank you, Ms. Campins. This is a little unusual, so let's do a roll call vote for this particular issue.
Mr. Jones,
Yay.
Ms. Campins,
Aye.
Mr. Lake,
Aye.
Mr. Monday,
Aye.
Mr. Wolf.
Aye. So we're going to keep you on the agenda, and we'll just keep it at the end of the line.
Okay.
Very good.
Thank you
Thank
all
you.
very much.
With that, let's get back to the agenda as scheduled, which brings us to item, as previously modified, 2021-38-DSV. Will the petitioner's representative please come forward?
Good evening. For the record, my name is Jeff Jacob. I'm an attorney with Hackman Hewlett with offices here in town at 1620 West Oak Street. I'm here tonight on behalf of Ron and Sarah Penzick. They're the petitioners and owners of the property located at 11301 East 300 South. In essence, the property is located between the Brookhaven subdivision and Union Elementary. It is zoned R2. And they are seeking tonight a petition for development standards variance to permit two primary structures on one lot. The staff report does a fantastic job of describing the history of this, but let me highlight a couple of items. The parcel, or a larger section in this particular parcel, was in front of the BZA last year. The previous owner requested a number of variances, some of which I'm seeking to modify here tonight, one of which I'm doing away with. And that was for a setback variance, the 3-to-1 depth ratio, and two primary residences on one lot. So the Penzicks bought this property earlier this year. And if you'll note in exhibit 3 of your packet, I have a site plan. And there are two residences, two main residences located on the property. And by way of description, I know it's somewhat hard to read. The yellow structure close to 300 South is what I'll refer to this evening as the guest house. The dark blue structure immediately to the east is an existing aged residence that is proposed for demolition should the BZA approve the project this evening. And then the tan area in the center of the project is the proposed new residence. So the proposed plan, as mentioned, is to remove the dark blue structure from the site or the old main residence and replace it with a new residence for the Penzics and leave the guest home or the yellow structure along 300. Now, a request is consistent with what a variance that was previously approved on this parcel, but since we're changing the footprint of one structure and substituting it with another, we need to seek your reapproval of that variance concept. Now, I do note that we are a setback variance for the structure in the northeast corner was approved last year, and that variance obviously will go away should the board see fit to approve this request. So we believe that this request is not only improving the property by removing an older home and replacing newer construction, curing a previously approved setback variance. We have also proposed a number of commitments that include removal of the main residence or existing main residence, that the guest home will have no short or long-term rental. That's not its intended purpose. It's truly a guest home that would operate as guests of the Penzics, and it would not be I hate to even say it, but it would not be a Airbnb or VRBO type use, and they've made that written commitment, as well as connecting the guest house and the new main residence to public water and sewer. So I'm happy to go through the statutory criteria, but I would ask that you follow staff's recommendation and approve the petition this evening.
Thank you, Mr. Jacob. I do have one question on the commitments. Can we tighten up the third commitment and put a timeline on that? And maybe I suggest that it be in conjunction with the construction of the new primary residence?
Absolutely.
Thank you, sir.
No problem with that.
What other questions do we have for the petitioner's representative at this time? Mr. Jones, I'm going to call you out individually because you're far away. Any questions? You're muted, but if you shake your head or do.
No, I have no questions.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, Mr. Jacob. Is there any members of our public who wish to speak for or against this particular petition? And I'll look also at, is it Joe? Joe, nobody online? Thank you, sir. With that, we have the staff report.
Yes, so as the petitioner noted, you heard this petition last year. The same property, now it's the property was split and the new owner has two of the legal non-conforming structures on the property. They're wanting to keep one, tear down the other, and build a new home, which will meet all the setbacks. And staff recommends approval, and I'm happy to answer any questions.
Thank you. And yeah, this is removing one of the conditions, one of the setbacks, right? So we're fixing one issue.
Yes, and one remains.
Perfect. Any discussion amongst the group? Otherwise, I would entertain a motion.
I move that docket 2021-38-DSB Development Standard Variance in order to provide for the allowed number of primary uses from 1 to 2, which includes a new residence on the one lot in the rural low-density single-family and two-family residential R2 be approved as filed to include the commitments made by the current owner and that commitment has been altered so that the hookup to sanitary sewers would be done for both of the structures at the time of the new construction of the primary residence.
Mr. Chad? Thank you. Is there a second to that motion?
Second.
Thank you, Mr. Lake. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. All those opposed, please say nay. Motion carries.
Thank you, and thank you for the accommodation on the agenda move. I appreciate that
Certainly.
very much. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Jacob. Getting back to our traditional agenda. Next item on our agenda is 2021-33-DSV for the property located at 160 North Maple Street. Mr. Rotman, you know the drill.
Hello, Todd Rotman, address 320 West Hoffman Street. I'm joined tonight by Bridget and Alessandro Curry, the homeowners, and their beautiful daughter over there. The letter from the owners, it's in the packet, as well as the staff report and the findings of facts, I think do a pretty good job of describing the project. So in the interest of time, I'll just hit some highlights. The Currys have been living in their house for 5 years. Things that have occurred over the past 5 years that are making them consider a project of the home is obviously COVID's having people re-examine how they use their homes and how much time they spend in their homes. They have a growing family. They also have a family medical issue that has a lot of out-of-town family that visits them. And they have realized that the person that flipped the house and sold it to them did really poor construction. So the back lean-to addition is in terrible shape. And the garage that they had built is starting to self-destruct itself already. And the previous owner built the garage with a violation on a side setback. So with that, they want to add bedroom and then replace the living space in that lean-to addition and then replace the garage as well. As part of that, we're looking to get a 30% lot coverage variance, which is already existing on the property. However, it's tied to that previous garage. Since we're building a new garage, we need to reapply for that. And then also a distance from the garage to the back alley, because the garage is now attached versus being detached. So we're open for any questions you guys might have.
Thank you, Mr. Rodman. What is the specific ask for lot coverage?
37%.
Yeah, we have it noted as 36.9, but 37 seems close.
And yeah, it's actually 36.9.
Yeah, and it's here in my information. I just can't immediately find it. What is the current lot coverage?
Oh, so currently it has the variance for 37.
Back in 2016.
But they actually didn't even need that much of a variance. They are currently at 35.2%.
Okay, so they're currently consuming 35.2.
Correct.
They have a variance for 37.
Correct.
They are asking for 37.
Correct.
And is there, what is the current setback?
The current setback is 10 feet, 9¼ inches.
And what are you proposing?
We are going to 9.43 feet.
So you're better at math than I am, Mr. Rotman.
It's like 1.3 inches.
Thank you, sir. Any other questions for the petitioner's representative? Mr. Jones, you can just shake your head.
Well, I was trying to locate it. The setback requirement is on the side of the property or on the rear? Kind of.
Oh, it's on the rear along the alley because we are an attached garage. We're supposed to be 20 feet off the alley.
Okay. But previously it had a detached garage that was closer to the alley.
It had a detached garage that was about probably 1.4 inches further from the alley than the new one.
Okay.
Question, any other questions for the petitioner? Seeing none at this time, are there any members of our public who wish to speak on this particular petition? If you would, please state your name and address for the record.
Thank you. My name is Dave Dam. I'm 155 North Main Street. My wife with me here as well. We are the backdoor neighbors of this project, so very encouraged that they worked with us on what their thoughts were, concerns, where to put the garage, so we're not conflicting with each other, and have been very great stewards and neighbors of the project concept and putting in, and we'd like to echo our support of your approval.
Thank you. Thank you for participating in tonight's conversation, and thank you to our petitioners for reaching out to your neighbors.
Thank you.
Any other members of our public who wish to speak on this particular petition tonight? Seeing no one jumping forward, we'll have the staff report, please.
Yes, so as the petitioner said, they are requesting to do an addition with an attached garage. Will not meet the rear setback towards the alley, and then will go over the lot coverage just under 37%. There was a previous petition on the property in 2016 to allow the detached garage and allow the 37% lot coverage. And staff recommends approval and happy to answer any other questions.
Thank you very much. Any questions for staff? Any discussion amongst the group? I would note, I think this is a fairly modest ask. We're very sensitive to lot coverage issues in the village. I would also note that the petitioners, the property owners, did file a remonstration for the property located at 145 North Main, which was also a lot coverage issue, but it was a higher ask. It was 42%, but they did file a letter for the public record on that.
I look at it that they had already asked for 37. It wasn't quite all used. They're coming back actually using the 37, so I feel like they're kind of within the allowance that was already given to them.
It seems like a modest request.
Yeah.
If there's no further discussion, I would entertain a motion.
Do we have to do each of these separately?
Let me jump into it.
There are two motions. I just don't know if we can vote on them together or separate.
You
can
address them together if
Okay.
you like. Sure.
Great. I move that docket number 2021-33-DSV Development Standards Variance in order to provide for an addition to a single-family home which deviates from the required rear yard setback 9 foot 5 1/4 inches in the urban residential village zoning district R-V be approved as filed based on the findings of fact and substantial compliance with the submitted site plans and concepts. At the same time, I ask that we move to support docket number 2021-33-DSV Development Standards Variance in order to provide for an addition to a single-family home which deviates from the required lot coverage to 36.9% in the urban residential village zoning district RV be approved as filed based on the findings of fact and substantial compliance with the submitted site plans and concepts.
Thank you, Mr. Lake. Is there a second to that motion?
I second.
Thank you, Ms. Campins. Let's do a roll call vote. Sorry.
No problem. Mr. Jones,
Aye.
Ms. Campins,
Aye.
Mr. Lake,
Aye.
Mr. Monday,
Aye.
Mr. Wolf.
Aye. Motion carries. Mr. and Mrs. Curdy, good luck with your project. Mr. Rotman, thank you very much.
Thank you. Appreciate your time.
Next on our agenda is docket number 2021-34-DSV for the property located at 445 West Sycamore Street. Will the petitioner please come forward?
Should be on Zoom.
Oh, well, can we please promote the petitioner? One moment, please. So I see you. I can't hear you yet. Okay, try now.
Yeah. All right. Can you hear me now?
Yep. We got you. Very good.
All right. Great.
Name and address for the record, please.
My name is Adam Scherpenberg. The address is 445 West Sycamore Street. And I apologize for not being there in person. My wonderful, one of my wonderful daughters got a bit of a stomach bug that she decided to pass on to me. So I apologize. So should I go ahead and give a description then?
Yeah, if you could describe briefly what you were asking for tonight.
Yeah, So asking for a development standards variance for the side yard setback of 5 foot for our new construction house for my wife and my couple kids, along the what would be the east property line. What this is for is to allow adequate paved area for a side load entry garage. If you look at the site plan, you can see the area that's hashed out in, it's cross hashed is the area that we're asking for to be able to go into that side lot variance. So essentially instead of a 5 foot setback, it would be a 1/2 foot setback. The driver for this is ultimately, we looked at that site itself has some specific challenges when it comes to setting, putting a house on it. It is a 50-foot wide lot. It does not have any rear or side alley access. And so, you know, it's in the RV district. So in order to build anything with a 2-car garage, if it was going to be a front access, garage, then we would only have 15 foot of house and then 20 foot garage. So that created challenges. We also looked at other options such as a detached garage, but the amount of pavement to put that towards the back would have been significant. You can see the details of why that level of width is needed. By and large, it's based upon turning radius of current vehicles and kind of the amount of room that you need in order to get in and out of a side entry garage. So we have done everything that we can in the design phase to, you know, not need a variance here. The garage is just wide enough to fit our current vehicles. Notably, we have pushed it as far west on the plot plan as possible and as far as the survey engineers would allow us to do due to the amount of variance within their staking. We're paying extra to get we did pay extra to get the foundation pin to make sure it's as far west as possible. And then we spent the extra to get the largest size 2-car garage door that the builder would offer. Despite that, in order to effectively move our cars in and out of the garage, we do request that extra paved area.
Thank you. I would note that many of your your petition has got a lot of detail in it, and so thank you very much for providing us all that information. A couple questions. It's approximately 50 feet that you will need the setback. You'll go into the setback approximately 50 feet.
That's correct.
And the length of the total property is 200 feet?
It's approximately that, correct.
And do you have an approximate length of the driveway, total driveway? I'm guessing based on this, it's about 150 feet.
About 150. Yep. Okay. That's about right.
So the vast majority of the driveway does not need a setback, but there's a particular portion here just because of the turnaround. And as you described in the petition, if you were to put a front-facing garage from the road, all you would see is essentially your garage. If you were to put the garage in the rear of the house, then you're still going to need a turnaround at some point, and you're going to add a lot of extra pavement.
Yeah, and also with the setbacks, it would have to be 10 foot off of the. It would have had to have been 10 foot off of the east boundary line due to the aggregate setbacks of 15 foot for buildings. So it would have made it even bigger.
Okay, understood. What questions do we have for the petitioner tonight? Mr. Jones, I can no longer see you. Do you have any questions?
Here, or am I just?
Yeah, there you are. Do you have any questions, sir?
My general question is, it's kind of a variance for convenience. You know, I'm sorry they're not able to build the house they want to build on the lot they bought, but it's a 50-foot wide lot. And part and parcel, the reason we have setbacks is not only for consistency and separation of the residents and the structures, but it's also just simple matters of drainage and, you know, I hate to say it, but I'm assuming your driveway is not going to drain towards the garage. So basically you're asking to drain that section of your driveway onto your neighbor's property. And, you know, as minimal as it sounds, 5 feet is substantial enough room to put a drainage swale to wherever drainage on that lot goes, whether it goes to the street to the north or somewhere to the south, your neighbor or whoever buys that adjoining parcel isn't going to want your water. And I know we go over this over and over and over on properties, but it's why we have all these lot coverage ratios. It's why the size of the driveway is always kind of a funny number in the way our codes are set up, that it doesn't count. So I'm sorry that you can't get the garage you want where you want so you can put your pool in, but you know, that's the issue. It's not really our problem.
Yeah, so I did have a conversation with the neighbor as well. She is supportive of it. And that lot has been sold, and the same builder is actually building on my lot and also the neighbor's lot. The direction of drainage from this property is by and large down to the south and to the east. So all the water would go in that direction. And also, if we look at her plot plan, her garage is actually going to be further to the north of where mine is. So we'll be going into the backyards independent of this.
Thank you. Any other questions for the petitioner?
Is the construction of the two residents going to take place at the same time?
I don't have that information right now. The neighboring property is staked, and I know it is under contract with the same builder. It has not begun the foundation phase at this point. However, you know, the staking has been completed. So I anticipate that it will be trailing my property by some period. The same company is doing the foundation and the rough backfill. So they have been engaged and aware of this petition. So all of that will be accounted for.
Any other questions? If not, are there any members of our public who wish to speak for or against this particular petition?
Mr. President, Matt Price, address of 485 West Sycamore Street. I own the property immediately west, 465 West Sycamore, and then also the property that is east of the property that's east of his lot, which is 425 West Sycamore. Both his lot and the adjoining lot to the east were raised. They were kind of filled in a few years ago with the permission of the town. And there's been kind of nice, what I think nice contouring that allows the properties to drain really to the east and across my property at 425. There's an existing drainage facility, weir and pipe that conveys the water, that at least currently conveys the water across the 425 West Sycamore Street property, and then it ultimately discharges into the town's stormwater drain. So I think that the properties have kind of contemplated their drainage capacity. The petitioner's been really excellent as far as his communications with the neighbors and providing the same detail to us. So at least from my vantage point as a neighbor on the street, I'm delighted to see new investment on West Sycamore Street and support the petition. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Price. Are there any other members of our public who wish to speak on this particular matter? Thank you, Joe. With that, we'll have the staff report, please.
The petitioner, as he stated, is requesting a side setback variance for the driveway, which is required to be 5 foot from the side property line. He's just extending just a portion of that that's not meeting the 5 foot setback, kind of the parking apron that's close to the garage. Staff recommended approval, and I'm happy to answer any other questions.
Thank you. Any questions for staff? Discussion amongst the group. It is an unusual property, and I respect Mr. Jones' opinion. And he's right. the setbacks are there for a reason. Drainage is a consistent issue. We did hear from an adjoining property owner about that, but as I look at the property, we need to think about the hardships. And I think, as I look at the findings of fact, the strict application in terms of the zoning ordinance will result in unnecessary hardship. So, with a property, yes, the petitioner did purchase a 50-foot wide property, but you're limited with that. And if the town wants it to be a vacant lot, the town should have purchased it. So we don't want it to be a vacant lot. So with that, if you're going to have a modern garage, which is at least 2-car, if not larger, but more likely 2-car, you've really limited yourself on what you can do. So I am sympathetic to the fact that because of the property is narrow, some accommodations may need to be made. Now, that being said, I do respect Mr. Jones' opinion. Drainage is always an issue, and setbacks are important. But that, I guess I'm sympathetic to that position, to the fact that this is an unusual property.
And to one other comment too, just sorry, I don't mean to butt in, but we did ask when we were in the early design phase about a common drive between the two, and that wasn't allowed per the zoning either. So we really have tried to do everything that I could possibly think of to get something that ultimately would fit the character and provide the modern conveniences. So thank you guys for hearing it.
Thank you for your efforts on that. It's also a good point. Any other discussion amongst the group?
Once again, not to be difficult, but it is a hardship entirely self-imposed, which isn't really a hardship.
Mr. Jones, we've heard, we've seen setback issues and things like that for what I always call the classic hardship, which is the triangle shaped property. And of course, when they purchase the property, they understand that the property is triangle shaped. So I agree with you, but I also think that the properties come with hardships. And the fact that this particular property is 50 feet and that we have modern conveniences for homes kind of defines what I think is a hardship here. My opinion.
I understand. I will, once again, we will run up onto the same hardship when people start putting the structural window wells on their homes that cut into the 5-foot setbacks so that they can classify a basement room as a livable area. I'm going to stand by those. I know it's unrelated to this, but I will stand by those since they are structural in nature. They are part of the structure and they shouldn't be in the 5-foot setback. Once again, it's a variance required or an approval required because of convenience, because it's self-imposed, because they want the basement to be a livable area. They need that structural window well. The same with this. The homeowner can still put a garage perpendicular to the street at the back, drive into it and do whatever without having to impose upon the setbacks. So if we're going to have requirements and lot standards, they're standards for a reason, and variance is required for something that is a personal want, to me doesn't merit.
Yeah, I understand your perspective, and I would also add that I think the petitioner articulated fairly well that if they were to put a detached garage towards the rear of the property, it would increase the pavement, which is not defined by lot coverage, as you well know, but it would increase the pavement, and easy to understand why. And consequently, that would also increase the drainage issues.
Yeah, I was looking at the same thing.
But that's a deficiency in our rules and regulations at some point needs to get addressed. That's not his problem. That's a Zionsville town problem.
Yeah.
But we're obligated to work with the rules we have.
Yeah.
Correct.
I was kind of sketching on it, and there isn't a good way to do that without significantly more pavement, just because of trying to get a car turned, backed in and back out, that 3-point turn, and trying to, like right now, his driveway extends past the edge of the garage so he can pull past, back in, and then be able to get himself back out. you could have him come all the way around the side of the garage, but to your point, you're adding a lot more impervious surface. And I'd rather have the 5 foot, which is not building, it's concrete, in that easement, in that setback, than I would another, 600 square foot of concrete or 1,000 square foot of concrete that doesn't soak up water. So I'm in line, I think, with your thinking that this is, while it is to some degree self-imposed, I think it's better from a drainage standpoint than the solution that doesn't require a variance. So,
Yeah, if you were to not, yes, I think we're thinking that along the same
Yeah.
lines. If you didn't need a variance and you put a detached garage on the back of the property, you would essentially end up with a lot more pavement.
Yeah.
Which is going to create a drainage issue.
Yeah.
But my thoughts.
Andy's talked to his neighbor and he understands the grades. One of his plans has plan 1 of 1, exhibit 5 has the grades on it, and he is correct that it drains to the back part of his property and his neighbor's property. So I'm inclined to support it.
Any other comments, discussion amongst the group? Otherwise, I will entertain a motion.
I move that docket number 2021-34-DSV Development Standards Variance in order to provide for a driveway that deviates from the required side yard setback to 0.5 feet in the urban residential village zoning district R-B be approved as filed, based upon the findings of fact and substantial compliance with the submitted site plans and concepts.
Thank you, Ms. Campins. Is there a second to that motion?
Second.
Thank you, Mr. Lake. Let's do a roll call vote.
Mr. Jones,
No.
Ms. Campins,
Aye.
Mr. Lake,
Aye.
Mr. Monday,
Aye.
Mr. Wolf,
Aye. Motion carries. Thank you, Mr. Scherpenberg. Good luck with your project. Hopefully I said your name
Thank
correctly.
you. We look forward to getting, yeah, you did. We look forward to getting back to Zionsville. Thank you all.
Thank you. Next item on our agenda is docket number 2021-37-UV for the property located at 6210 Technology Center Drive, Suite 225.
Good evening.
Good evening. Would you please state your name and address for the record?
My name is Eric Sanguinetti, General Manager of Kirby Realty Group, LLC, 298 West Carmel Drive, Carmel.
Thank you, sir. And what's in front of us tonight?
We respectfully request a variance of use to permit a church in the building of 6210 Technology Center Drive in Suite 225. A church is currently not a permitted use in the I-1 zoning district per 194.082 Table 2 under nonprofit membership organizations. This use will allow for a clean, productive use of an existing vacant 8,000 square foot space with no alterations to the exterior nor footprint of the building except for the signage in the front.
Thank you, sir. And what do you anticipate the use hours to be? Approximately.
Sure.
They're on the sheet.
Are they somewhere?
Exhibit 4.
It is, but I can go ahead and state it if you'd like.
I would, just for the record, just so we
Sure.
have it out loud.
Sunday at 10 a.m. They will have an attendance anywhere between 75 and 85 individuals. Sunday at 6 p.m. they will have an approximate attendance of 80 to 90 individuals. Monday at 7:30 they will have an approximate attendance of 30 individuals. Wednesday at 7:45 p.m. they will have an approximate attendance of 65 to 75 individuals. They will have office hours Monday through Friday from 9 a.m. to 5 p.m. On the site, personnel would be 1 to 2 during that time.
Thank you very much. What questions do we have for the petitioner?
Maybe not for the petitioner, but parking in that area, you're able to park them on your property?
Yes, we have a 4.26 per 1,000 square foot as a parking ratio.
And they're simply a tenant, they're renting the building, not buying the building.
Correct. We own the building, or Kirby Realty Group owns the building.
I would note for the petitioner, as well as the fellow board members, if you look at the procedural note below the recommended motion, I think staff can certainly correct me where I go wrong, but staff is looking to tie this particular use variance to the entire building and not just suite 225. I think if you, as we continue our conversation, I think if you look at the recommended motion, it certainly specifies the building, but not the suite. And I think that is what staff is encouraging. Any other questions for the petitioner?
What other businesses are in that building?
We have a pharmacy, a pharmaceutical company that does home deliveries. And then we also have a company that goes to big facilities and pre-checks their maintenance, their electric, their power coming in, and any safety issues.
And I assume all those other businesses are Monday through Friday, 9 to 5?
They are. I have reached out to both of those tenants, companies, and they have no issues with a church being their neighbor. They did give me hours and the attendance as well, if you'd like to hear that.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Any other discussion amongst the group? Are there any members of our public who wish to speak for or against this particular petition? Seeing none, may we have the staff report?
So petitioner stated this is a use variance request. A place of worship is not a permitted use in rural light industrial. They're going in an existing office building and recommends approval. We kind of looked at the parking briefly, and I don't see any parking issues based on the number of spots they have and overlapping with the other tenants in the building, and staff recommends approval.
Thank you. Any questions for staff?
There's oftentimes we put a time frame, sunset period. Staff has no concern about an open-ended approval.
No. And also, I think the intent of having the entire parcel be permitted use in case that the church wanted to expand or move to a different suite.
Makes sense.
So quick question then, as a church, will they be applying for a reduction in property taxes for the property?
No, sir.
That's where I was headed with my rent versus own. I wanted to not shift our tax burden in that district.
Fellow board members, I'd also note, we don't see use variance as often as we see other requests. There are a couple different standards that we meet, but as I have reviewed them, I think the petitioner has met all of them, in my opinion.
Ironically, the building to the west has a use variance that I submitted.
Any other discussion amongst the group? If not, I would entertain a motion.
I move that docket 2021-37-UV, a use variance to permit a church or temple use as a primary use at 6210 Technology Center Drive be approved as filed based on findings of fact.
Thank you, Mr. Mundy. Is there a second to that motion?
Second.
Thank you, Mr. Lake. Let's do a roll call vote.
Mr. Jones,
Yes.
Ms. Campens,
Aye.
Mr. Lake,
Aye.
Mr. Monday,
Aye.
Mr. Wolf.
Aye. Motion carries. Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, if I may offer some information, I was approached earlier this evening toward the beginning of the meeting by a resident who's concerned with docket number 2021-39-DSV, Arboris, and wanted to offer thoughts on a potential continuance. She is in attendance now. I don't know if you want to hear her concern before you would open that petition.
Why don't we, I'm going to turn to Mr. Chad. Why don't we hear the petition because it's on our agenda? And if the neighbor feels that they need additional information or additional time and request a continuance, we can make a motion on that.
I think that's fair.
Okay, very good. So that brings us to docket 2021-39-DSV for the property located at 275 Beechwood Lane. Will the petitioner's representative, petitioner, please come forward?
Thank you. Roger Burris. I live at 4605 Hickory Court in Zionsville, and I also practice law at 410 West Oak in Zionsville. But I'm here, this is more of a personal matter because I'm here on my parents' property, which is at 275 Beechwood Lane in Zionsville. And I know you've got some drawings. I've got one that I think will show the situation even better. So I highlighted the Beechwood Lane neighborhood was kind of established before I was born. So my parents bought this property in 1958. And so these lots were like 2 to 4 acres each. And Beechwood Lane actually dead ends at the base of my parents' property. And my parents' lot is 2.4 acres, 2.2 if you don't include the right-of-way for Beechwood Lane. And the reason that the right-of-way is the way it is, I'm not necessarily sure of all the reasons, because in 1971, my parents and the Carters, who owned part of Poplar Street, dedicated that portion of the street to the town, and that dedication was accepted, for public use. So the situation that was created many years ago is that you have a public road that kind of dead ends. And then as you see the properties to the west at 285 and 295 Beechwood Lane, those properties utilize an access easement that crosses my parents' property. And it more or less bisects my parents' property. So if you look at this is the proposed plat that I have filed with the Plan Commission, but that's not for consideration tonight. But I colorized this drawing in order to make clear that if the property is allowed to be subdivided, lot 1 to the north would be 1.35 acres. And actually, there's a mistake in the staff report because it's understandable, because the original drawing that was submitted by the surveyor did not show the line the way it's shown here. As it's shown here, there is 50 foot of frontage on Beechwood Lane for lot 1. And proposed lot 2 would have plenty of frontage. Proposed lot 2 would need no variances whatsoever. It would be 0.81, almost an acre. It's low ground, so it's not necessarily easily buildable. But the reason that I'm here is because, my parents moved to this house when I was 1 year old. I grew up there. My parents were very happy to clear, garden, and mow the property that's shown as lot 2. In fact, they used to refer to it as the South 40. And it's not 40 acres, but it's basically 40% of the total of both lots. The situation that I'm faced with now is that my parents are both deceased, and we're ready to sell the house. And it struck me that if I sell the house and don't do anything about this access easement. I mean, it's an easement that will continue and there's no problem with that. Both lots are subject to that access easement. But if I put that access easement on my lot 2, then it would enable a potential addition and a potential combination of that lot with one of the lots to the west. And actually that was tried once in the past when the neighbors immediately to the west, which was the lot at 285 Beechwood, when that owner decided to sell that 2-acre lot, 2.3 acre lot was purchased by a local builder, and he had a survey done in order to subdivide that property. Then he talked to my father, who said, no, you're not. My father did not want that property subdivided, so he said no, he would not consent to that. And so that builder ended up selling that lot, and I can show you a drawing that shows that a little better. This is the survey for that property, and again, this is an old survey, but it shows that house and it shows the driveway that extends across that lot. My lot is shown 275 in yellow, and then the 4 lots together are shown in red. But you can see the area south of that house at 285, which is 1.1 acre. And so that property was then sold to the owner of 295. And 285 was sold to Jay and Candy Yeager, who have lived there for 20, 25 years. They are certainly aware of my plans, as are the other neighbors. And I've heard no objections from any of my neighbors. I'm certainly willing to consider any questions or concerns that those here tonight would have. I know the complete history on this property. I know it basically like the back of my hand. And but if I did not do what I'm proposing, then the owners of 285 and 295 could potentially be cut off from any redevelopment of their properties in the future. You know, if I sold as is to somebody who, like my father, did not want to see any additional development to the west, then I think that would not necessarily be a good thing. And it would not be good for the town, because the town would lose the opportunity for future development back there. And so I think it's a rather unusual situation that in this case, you know, the variance standard that you've talked about tonight is that I'm not doing anything that's inconsistent with the neighborhood and that would damage my neighbors. I have not heard that that's the case. Also, it's the purpose of the setback. So asking for a variance from 150 foot, which is what's required for a lot that's over 1 acre in the RSF1 single family district. So it would be going from 50 feet to 150 feet is what's required. You know, the purpose, as is noted in the staff report, of that requirement is so that you don't have narrow lots. And these lots are 200 feet wide. They're certainly not narrow. There's plenty of area around the homes, you know, plenty of yard space. There's no problem with any of the other requirements other than the frontage on a public street. So I kind of hinted at the fact that in this case, the hardship is not necessarily all on me and my family. It could be on my neighbors as well as the town itself, because you know, somebody else might not see things the same way that I do. And I've had neighbors ask me about acquiring my proposed lot 2 already. So I think that it would potentially benefit some of my neighbors. And I think this is an ideal, or, you know, compared to some of the other situations that you've addressed, I think this is probably one of the best hardship cases that I have found.
So I'm really stuck on the hardship thing, because the easement's going to stay regardless if a new owner buys that property. So the homes to the west are completely unaffected. They still have access to their sites. They can do whatever they want with their sites. They're completely unaffected. So splitting this there's no hardship there at all that splitting this remedies. There's zero hardship. Selling this lot as it is one single lot poses no hardship at all to anybody.
Well, there may be some buyers that would not want the additional land.
That's not a hardship.
And I think, remember, it's unnecessary hardship is what the ordinance specifies.
It's not unnecessary hardship. It's a lot. It's a lot that's whatever acres. If they want to buy it, they buy it. If they don't, they don't. They want to subdivide it once they buy it, then they can come talk to us about why they want to subdivide it. But there's no inherent hardship.
Well, I would respectfully suggest that because of the unusual circumstances that led to the creation of this situation, that originally Beechwood Lane was not public, but then it became public because of owners in the past that created that by dedicating it to the town. And then having no other issue with meeting the requirements of the ordinance. And
I mean, the configuration of the lots doesn't allow you to get the 150 foot. So to get 2 lots, then I see there may be some hardship in trying to get 2 lots, but as it stands today as 1 lot, as you described it, 1 lot in and of itself creates a hardship. So you're trying to do 2 lots to remedy a hardship. That doesn't fly. It being 1 lot doesn't create any hardship.
What Chris is referencing is that there's like an easement by prescription. In other words, you cannot sell a piece of property and landlock other property. So even if there's not an actual set in stone easement, there's an easement by prescription, by use. People have been able to travel across lot 275 to reach 285 and 295. And even if you sell the parcel to another owner, they're going to have a right to cross that property. And so what you're wanting to do really is just take the property and separate it into 2 parcels and then put an easement on one or the other to give access to 285 and 295, which at a certain point, you might be better off to dedicate a road across 275 and 285 and just be done with it. But we got to agree with Chris. There's not really you're not meeting the issue of a deficiency or a problem.
Mr. Burris, you're going to know this more than I am, but what is the process? Why would you not pursue dedicating the road? Just making it, extending Beechwood Lane across the property and having the 2 parcels?
that would be an option in the future. But I don't know that I can preserve that option. I mean, I'm the executor of the estate. My obligation is to, answer to the heirs. And by the way, this is an express easement for 285 and 295. This is not an easement by prescription. It's already there.
Yeah.
It was there when my parents bought the property. So it's not that type of situation. But back to your question,
I guess what I'm saying is, and again, I don't want to oversimplify a complicated matter, but if it was 2 lots in a road, then you don't need the setback because the property to the north would have plenty of frontage. The property to the south would have plenty of frontage. The easement disappears. I'm not sure if the town wants to maintain that extra 75 feet of road or whatever it is, 150 feet of road. But I just don't know what that process is. I don't know how the town.
Actually, I think they might want a cul-de-sac created at the end of it or something like that, a better mechanism of people being able to turn around back there.
More than likely, I know the town does have concerns about safety equipment, access and being able to move, and so maybe that's a problem. I don't know, but.
Yeah, no, I mean, that's one of the possibilities that I've considered, which would be probably contingent on one of the neighbors to the west actually wanting to do something. I think it creates opportunities for them rather than a hardship for them. But, as somebody who's seen how these things happen and how sometimes, one property owner can act against the interests of his neighbors.
Well, but back to that statement, when the parcel lot 275 is sold, the new owners of lot 275 should be made aware that there is an easement, whether it's by prescription or by whatever. I know, you know what I'm trying to say is.
Certainly will.
They do not have the right or the authority to cut off access to 285 and 295, correct?
Correct. But they have the right to potentially cut off additional development of 285 and 295.
Correct, but additional development of 285 and 295 would then necessitate they meet current requirements and code requirements. And if that means they have to put in a cul-de-sac for emergency equipment, then that is up to the owners of lot 275, 85, and 95 to make those decisions and bear the cost of same to come in full compliance.
And if I sell my total lot as is, then they might not ever get that opportunity.
Well, once again, or Mr. Burris, you could join forces with 275, 85, and 95, work out a larger development plan for your parcels and come back with a more fully developed request than just this variance.
Well, but that would be part of my plan. And if I can subdivide first and then sell my lot one, then, I mean, it just facilitates those opportunities much easier than what I have now.
No, you need to come back with a fully developed plan that meets all current requirements. What you're attempting to do is to back us into a corner by allowing us to grant you a variance to sell two parcels that do not meet the basic requirements and then try to come back around to a fully developed plan. Currently, there is no hardship for lot 275. And if it is sold as a single parcel, lot 285 and lot 295 are still guaranteed access.
So
The only issue crops up if 275, 285, and 295 went to combine all their lots to some larger development. They can also do that, but at that time, they would have to then go back through the process of meeting all the requirements for a proper road, which is entirely up for them to do. Or it's up for you to join them and do it.
And none of them have approached me on that basis, but I would be happy to discuss that with them.
Okay.
But again, to me, it seemed to make more sense to pursue the split. And, it's not up to this body to approve the split. That would be the plan commission. But it made sense to me to apply for the variance because, without the variance, you're not going to get the minor plat. And again, the variance is only required because of the situation, the way this was created 60 some years ago. And then combined with the dedication of part of Beechwood Lane. And I think that satisfies the requirement. So the cases have talked about in determining what's an unreasonable hardship. One of them talked about that, when you have a unique situation, that the application of the ordinance to that unique situation can be the thing that creates the hardship. And, sometimes in other jurisdictions, they use the term practical difficulties rather than unnecessary hardship. And I think that also points toward considering a situation like this where it is unique, that the future plan of the petitioner is not to alter the neighborhood It's to try to sell his parents' house while maintaining the options for another lot, which would fit all of the requirements of the ordinance. And, you know, there's no way I can get more than 50 foot on the public road.
Well, again, I'm speaking out of turn because I don't know this process. But, and maybe the town wouldn't even support this. I don't represent them in this particular matter. But if you dedicated your portion of the easement to the town, back to Beechwood Lane, then you'd have more than enough frontage. Now, I'm not sure if the town wants that, or if it's even an option.
I would consider that.
I don't represent the town in that particular matter, but like if the town owned that road, then you've got no reason to come to us for a frontage.
Yeah, my assumption was that the town would want, you know, a cul-de-sac or something that would involve my neighbors on down the line. And
honestly, your assumption is probably better than mine. I don't know that, but okay.
I'd love to hear from the public.
Yep. Any other questions for our petitioner tonight? Mr. Jones, no, thank you. Okay, with that, we'll open up for public comment. Is there any members of our public who would like to speak for or against this particular petition? I see two, so we'll get to you second, if that's okay. Very good. Come forward and please, you guys are first. I saw you guys jump up first, sorry. Come forward and please state your name and address and let us know your thoughts.
Good evening. My name is Magdalena Chader.
And Stephen Redence at 295 Beechwood Lane, Zionsville, Indiana.
We would like to ask for continuing to the next meeting. We have received a letter with a notification of the situation about the beginning of the last week. So that gave us kind of 6 days for looking for the answers, and we would like to better understand how that will affect our property.
Okay. And I just want to be very clear. You're 295 Beechwood Lane, so you use the easement every day to access the property.
That's correct.
Okay, very good. And you're asking for a continuance so that you can get more information to better understand the request.
That's correct.
Okay, very good. And I guess my last question for you is, our next meeting is November 3rd. If we were to grant a continuance, is that enough time, or do you need more time than that?
We would prefer the next meeting after that. I'll be out of town during that time, so that would be a better solution.
Okay,
if
so let
that
me
can
just,
be December meeting.
yeah, let me just grab a calendar, which looks like it would be December 1st. December 1st. So your request is that we continue this matter so you can get more information to the December 1st Board of Zoning Appeals meeting.
That's correct.
Okay, very good. Understood. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Sir, if you want to come forward.
My name is Patrick Brown, and I live at 260 Beechwood Lane, which is the property immediately to the south of what you see as Lot 2. And I know Roger, I know his family, I know the property. We've had discussions about buying some of that property of Lot 2 at times. And what I understood from Roger's proposed division here is that he's putting the easement beyond the end of Beechwood Lane entirely on Lot 2, in effect. So even though Lot 1 would have access potentially to that, it's the easement itself is entirely on Lot 2. And I think that's consistent with his explanation of the motivation of what he was trying to do. We have absolutely no objection to the division of Lot 1 and Lot 2. I do think that from a practical standpoint, it would make a lot more sense to dedicate the easement to the town and let the town take over that function up to the edge of Lot 295. That then preserves, I think, for everybody's benefit, the option of further development back there which we would not necessarily support, quite frankly, but it does continue that option for all three of those lots, 275, 285, and 295. That's a very quiet, private, dead-end location. So there's virtually no traffic except by mistake back there. So that's a prized thing, and I'm sure that the folks on 295 value that a great deal. But we have had no objection to what Roger has proposed here, and I would support that.
Did you have a concern about the location of the easement between the two on lot, or were you just stating for fact?
No, I just was really pointing that out.
Okay.
Simply because, again, he could have divided it in the middle of the easement. He could have put the easement on lot 1. I think by basically locating it on lot 2 and cutting it out of lot 1, that supports what he tried to explain up here in terms of his own motivation.
Understood.
So for clarification, the majority of the easement is on lot 2.
Right.
Not all of
Not
the
all
easement.
of it, that's true.
Okay. Thank you for calling that out.
One other point about lot 2. Lot 2, common misconception, and you may very well be aware of it, is the sailor's drain affects that property. And with the drainage situation through the old Carter property, it used to flood literally every year, several feet. It no longer floods. However, it is a part of the drainage pattern that runs through 295, 285, 275, et cetera. So that lot 2 is quite wet and would not be really buildable without substantial fill. So the anticipation of any kind of quick development on that property is probably not in the cards here at all.
Understood. Any questions? Thank you for participating in tonight's conversation. Mr. Mercy, I want you to come back up. So we have not heard the staff report, but we do have a continuance request from a remonstrator in front of us.
Yes. I have no objection to that. I would be happy to discuss any of this with them.
Okay. Generally, Mr. Burris, I would like to provide you specific instruction on what we'd like to see the next time we hear this, but this is an unusual circumstance. I think there's probably a couple creative ways to solve this problem, but I certainly couldn't advise you on them. So with that,
I would suggest talking to the town about what the likelihood is of dedicating that easement as a road.
Certainly explore that.
okay. So as a board, we have not heard the staff report. I'm not sure we need to, because we have been very agreeable to neighbors' requests for continuous to get more information.
Sure.
So with that, is there a motion to continue this to the December 1st BZA meeting?
So moved.
Thank you, Mr. Lake. Is there a second to that motion?
Second.
Thank you, Ms. Campins. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Thank you. Those opposed, please say nay. Motion carries. Thank you. So we'll see you on December 1st. Thank you. Next on our agenda is docket number 2021-40-DSV for the property located at 9805 Equestrian Way. Please come forward. Welcome back. Ms. Hall, would you please state your name and address for the record?
Angela Hall, 9805 Equestrian Way, Zionsville.
Thank you. And would you describe in your words what's in front of us tonight?
Yes, it's a petition for a development standards variance to allow us to exceed our allowable lot coverage to construct calling it a pool cabana, but it is a concrete floor, 16 by 20 structure that would be adjacent to our pool. asking for the permit and having it be reviewed, it was determined that it would make us 1.57, I believe, % over the allowable lot coverage of 20%. So that's the reason that we are here. If there are concerns about drainage issues, the location of the structure would not affect the current drainage. The drainage has been adjusted around the pool to go into the current easement and the drains there, and this location shouldn't affect that at all. It's not in the kind of route of drainage. I'm happy to answer any questions that you have. I think that the memo represents the situation well. And I appreciate all the work that the staff did to help me with this.
Our staff does a tremendous job. What questions do we have for the petitioner tonight? Looking down the line, Mr. Jones, do you have any questions?
No.
Thank you, sir.
It appears that there are other neighbors that exceed their lot coverage as well. Do we know that to be true? 9799, 9764, 9798.
Mr. Lake, we have seen properties in that neighborhood before. Okay, for similar.
Thank you.
One quick question. Are we going to have a problem with the location of the pool equipment?
The pool's already established, correct?
Yeah.
Pool's there.
Where's the pool equipment currently?
It is on the west side of the pool, and it will be adjacent to the proposed cabana, and thus kind of incorporated therein with.
I guess what I'm looking at is Exhibit 5.
Okay.
Does it
Exhibit A.
stay in its current location, or are you having to relocate it to make room for the cabana?
No, it will stay in its current location.
Is it in the side yard setback?
Not to my understanding, no. When we applied for the pool permit, it was vetted then, I believe, and determined to be appropriate. The drawing in Exhibit 5 is not to scale, I guess. I mean, this line is not the property line. I don't know if that is what you're asking. I apologize if I'm not addressing it correctly.
Side yard setback is 10 foot.
I believe it's 5 feet.
Okay. Why don't we continue our conversation and we'll seek confirmation. Any other questions for the petitioner? We are, Mr. Jones, I think we're seeking clarity on the setback.
If there's anything that I have that can, are you suggesting we're going to continue the hearing or?
No, I think
Okay.
we're just making sure that if we address this issue, we're addressing all the issues that may be there.
Okay.
I think I saw Roger leaving, so. Any other questions for the petitioner at this time?
You said the pool equipment is west of the proposed cabana,
That's right.
but it's essentially adjacent to.
Yeah, it's kind
So
of.
it's within that 12 feet.
It would, well,
Yeah.
it's not included in the proposed concrete that's putting us over the lot coverage. It's previously been calculated and included in the pre-existing percentage of lot coverage.
If it's within the, if it's in violation of the side yard setback, it's already in violation of the side yard setback.
Yes, and it's my understanding that would have been determined when we applied for the pool permit.
We've made mistakes in the past. But it's not, just to be super clear, you're not moving the pool equipment.
No, we are
It's
not
there and
moving
it's
pool
staying-
equipment.
okay.
It's staying where it is. The cabana would then be between the pool and the pool equipment.
Understood. Okay. Any other questions for the petitioner at this time? Okay. Are there any remonstrators who wish to speak for or against this particular petition? Seeing none. Want to provide us a staff report, please? I know you're looking something up for us right now.
Yes.
Sorry.
So the staff report recommends approval, going over to by 1.57% to accommodate the pool gazebo with the concrete pad. I think your question about the existing setback for the pool equipment and pool equipment is not a structure. So mechanical equipment and that sort of thing doesn't have to meet the side yard setback.
Okay. Did you find what the setback is in RS?
But yeah, we're looking up to see what the actual
I
setback
think we've
is.
At the bottom of Exhibit 3, it says zoning 10-foot/25-foot side, 25-foot rear.
Accessory buildings would be 5 feet.
Okay.
I believe the gazebo is meeting the 5-foot setback, but
Yeah. Okay, so Mr. Jones, I'm not sure if you caught all that.
I did.
Okay, then I don't believe we have a setback issue.
Correct.
Any discussion amongst the group? If not, I will entertain a motion.
Move the docket 2021-40-DSB Development Standard Variance in order to provide for an increase of lot coverage up to 21.57% for the construction of a detached structure and patio in the urban single-family residential district. RSF 2 be approved as filed based on findings of fact and substantial compliance with the submitted site plans.
Thank you, Mr. Monday. Is there a second to that motion?
Second.
Thank you, Mr. Lake. Let's do a roll call vote.
Mr. Jones,
Aye.
Ms. Campens,
Aye.
Mr. Lake,
Aye.
Mr. Monday,
Aye.
Mr. Wolf.
Aye, motion carries. Ms. Hall, good luck with your project.
Thank you very much.
Oh, these are all public. With that, I think we move on to the next item on our agenda, which is other items to be considered. Should we just address these in order? Public hearing signs?
yeah.
Okay, sock it to me.
So I think you got a memo in this in the packet. This is regarding our public hearing signs that we post for any BZA case. And we do the same thing for plan permission. Our staff's request is to have the petitioner place those signs going forward instead of staff. Would be better time management. We'd obviously coordinate with the petitioner to get the sign to them. So I don't think it would be any extra work for the petitioner. We believe it's similar to what other municipalities do in the area. I know in Carmel, they actually make you go make your own sign and post it. So we would still provide the sign and that. We would update our notice of affidavit, which talks about the notices, the 10-day public hearing notices to send out. And that will also include the notice that the sign was posted on the property 10 days before. We would update, if you all are on board with it, we would update the BZA rules of procedure to note that change.
Thank you for that description. I don't think we get any value from our staff if they're placing these signs. I think there's lots of work to be done and that's not where they can add value. My only concern would be, is there any way for us to administer, that's probably not the right word, but how do we know that they place the sign? I'm worried about notification. So we had a notification issue tonight. How do we ensure that the sign is placed properly and those types of things?
Well, they would sign the affidavit that says we posted the sign in a visible location 10 days before the hearing. In addition to that,
In addition to that, the rules of procedure are going to tie them to doing that. But beyond that, it's staff's intention to inform the applicant that their sign is here, give suggestions of where it needs to be placed, and so that they have direction of where that sign should go.
Are we of the impression that if they didn't place the sign according to said rules and procedures, that they would not be serving proper notice?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, it's an additional, well, it's already a requirement that the sign be there. This is just transferring responsibility to the petitioner.
Right. I just know that if we ask staff to do it, it's getting there. I'm just,
Right.
you know, like
Right.
making sure if we ask the petitioner to do it, that they're doing it.
And Plan Commission did approve
That's
this
correct.
as well.
Okay. Do we need a motion to?
I don't know that staff's really looking
No,
for
they-
action.
Commission.
Just-
Well, we're asking for your blessing to move forward and to changing that responsibility from staff to the petitioner.
I am in favor of this. Any other discussion or any other opinions?
I'm in favor.
Yeah, favor.
Mr. Jones, any
Just one
thoughts?
other thing, the rules of procedure will come back for you to review. We'll need your execution of the updated rules of procedure. And while we're doing that, I understand that there is specific verbiage to the electronic meeting resolution that should be included in the rules as well. So hopefully the next time around, we'll have that prepared and in a document that you can review and execute if you desire.
Very good. So I think we're ready to move forward. Okay, next item would be the 2022 BZA meeting dates and deadlines. Hard to imagine we're thinking about that already.
Christmas stuff's almost up in the store.
I had that in front of me, but I don't have it in front. May I borrow yours?
Yeah. They're stuck to the page in front of it. I haven't seen it.
I see no concerns. Anyone on the board have any concerns?
I do not either.
No.
Okay, do we need to do anything to adopt these?
You need to approve those dates.
Okay. Is there a motion to approve the 2022 Board of Zoning Appeals calendar as it's been submitted to us?
So moved.
I'm going to say Mr. Mundy had that. Is there a second to that motion?
Second.
Thank you, Mr. Lake. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Thank you. Those opposed, please say nay. Okay. The calendar for 2022 has been adopted, which leads us to our last other matter to be considered, which is the parking at 405 South Elm Street and clarification of what happened there. Who's coming forward? I've got a lot of people in here who know about this, so.
Mr. Wolf, I'll be glad to provide an introduction and then
Okay.
different representatives speak. Over the past few months here in 2021, you've had two different development standards come before you, both of which were approved, and both involved reduction in required off-street parking. One project was the Cohash project, case number 2021-07 DSV, that was heard on April 7th of 2021. Second project I'm referring to is the Nicholson Orthodontics project, case number 2021-19-DSV, and that was approved at the August 4th BZA hearing. How these projects are tied together is that in both parking solutions, they were referencing utilizing parking spaces at a parcel that is owned by Harris. Sorry, I'm drawing a blank on the last name of the Harris ownership group, but both proposals reference utilizing spaces there. In addition, back in 2018, there was a special exception granted for a project by the name of Zionsville Underground, which parking was a consideration in that special exception case, and it too referenced available parking at the same Harris-owned lot. Upon the approval of the Nicholson Orthodontics project in August, I maybe I should, maybe I shouldn't have, but I did take it under my position to just touch base with Cohatch to see where do you guys stand in finalizing your parking agreement with Harris? And because I then informed them that just recently, the board had approved Nicholson to utilize some of the spaces there. I said, we need to make sure everybody knows what's going on because we don't want to have only so many parking spaces available with more than that being spoken for. Upon making them aware of that, the different parties from each of the petitions got together and discussed possible solutions on how can we all work together and play well together. Just a little bit more than a month ago, I had the opportunity to meet with Mr. Rabinowitz representing Cohatch, and that's when he said, well, what if we would present a shared parking solution? And I said, show us what you've got, what you come up with, and then the decision makers will need to determine whether that's acceptable or not. Just recently, the proposal was presented to me. I shared it with Wayne DeLong, our Director of Economic Development, and also Mr. Chad, and said, what do you guys think? And upon Mr. Chad's direction, he said, we need to take this back before the BZA to see what you think of the shared parking proposal. So that's what brings us here tonight. I'll gladly turn it over to anyone. Each of the petitions does have representation here tonight. So I'll gladly turn it over to any one of them. If you either need to correct something that I've said, or if you need to add to it, I'm open to questions. But basically, the question before the board, as I understand it, is the shared parking proposal that is being presented, is it acceptable to the board? Does it comply with the approvals that have been granted?
Understood. Roger, thank you for doing the legwork on this. I think it is necessary that we formalize this and we document this process. So with that, could somebody speak for the group? We don't need to make a mountain out of a molehill, but we do want to have clarity on what we're looking at.
Well, I do think we need to make a mountain out of a molehill.
Okay.
That was a good introduction. Thank you, Mr. Jones.
I'd like to.
Commissioners, my name is Misha Rabinowitz. I'm an attorney at Dinsmore and Shoal in Indianapolis. I represent Cohatch, and also on the line is, I think, John Watkins, one of the principals of Cohatch. He may want to comment on some of the things that I have to add to what Roger said. And I think Roger did a nice job of summarizing the situation. I think there are a couple of new or board members that were not here for the hearing. So just to set the table a little bit before we make some comments on the parking arrangement, Cohatch's project is to redevelop the sanctuary, the church building there at 75 North Main, which I think we all agreed at the last hearing and at the Plan Commission is an important historic building worth saving. And this is a tremendous opportunity to do it with a nice reuse. That said, I think as Mr. Jones pointed out, when they built that church in the 1800s, it certainly wasn't built with the type of parking requirements that we have now. So certainly some creativity in finding a parking solution was important. Just to sort of summarize, the building is being subdivided into two uses: office, which has a 13 parking space requirement, and a restaurant, which has a 21 space parking requirement, for a total of 34 spaces. We think those two uses are compatible. We went through this at the BZA meeting, but office is generally daytime use, restaurant primarily in the evening, and there are 4 on-site parking spaces. So when we met with the BZA, the approval of the parking variance included a condition that the petitioner secure 23 off-site parking spaces, and then within the Zionsville Architectural Review Committee district, and then 8 additional on-site parking spaces for the exclusive use of the Cohatch project, also within that district. We had a lot of discussion of the use of that 45 South Elm property. That was before we knew that Dr. Nicholson was also planning to use it. And I know there was discussion of what its importance was, but I think that was an agreement that those 23 spaces could be part of this plan. So that was the approval, the condition that was made. So we entered into conversations with Mr. Harris about the lease. Then Dr. Nicholson's project was approved. Obviously, we have to think creatively about how we can all work together. I think we have done that. Dr. Nicholson's use and that agreement, my understanding, is for 9 spaces during the daytime. And that Cohatch would have use of the rest of those spaces during the daytime, and that all of the spaces would be for Cohatch's use in the evening. And I left out that Cohatch would be planned to lease the building, primarily for the parking, obviously. And then the third use that Roger mentioned, Mr. Price's client, Zionsville Underground, included in their special exception, was reference to using that lot. We're certainly willing to work with them and have agreed to include in our lease with Mr. Harris that to the extent Zionsville Underground needs to use parking from time to time, that would be acceptable to Cohatch. So it really is a creative way to use the parking for all of us to cover our needs, I think, and they can certainly speak for themselves. We also, the additional part of the agreement is that we would identify 8 additional spaces, and we will do that. Mr. Watkins, I can speak to where we are on that. We think that is certainly something that will happen soon. One other comment. My understanding is that there is an additional public lot being paved at the south end of town at First and Sycamore. Obviously, that's not committed to Cohatch, but it'd be part of what's available for public use. So, and our understanding from, I think, the Department of Public Works is that that would be a 46 space lot. So representatives of the other parties can certainly speak. John Watkins, do you have anything to add? Oh, you're muted.
I thought you summarized it well, Misha, and thank you. I would just say that, we have identified 12 spots quite close to the existing Cohatch location. We're in negotiations with the owner of that building. And so we feel confident that the 8 additional spots that we're required to have can be achieved before we need to apply for our certificate of occupancy.
Okay, understood. Fellow board members, what comments, concerns do you have about the proposal in front of us?
Do we want to hear from the other parties?
Do you have, Mr. Price, could you add color to this, or? Sure. If you showed up all night.
I enjoy it.
He just likes us that much.
It's Matt Price again for Zionsville Underground. And I thought Misha summarized everything very well. You may recall that as part of our special exception, we had filed a plan of operation, and a couple of key components of that plan of operation, which I'll just mention, is that our events are invitation only. For a daytime event during the week where there are 25 or more people, we have to valet park, which we've done. For evening events, it's 50 or more. We're required to valet, which we've also done. And what we have found is that our clientele prefers other parking when they're being valeted. And so we have, and just access to that parking. So we have 62 other spots other than Mr. Harris's lot that we have under lease and available to us for valet purposes. And those are located at the South Village lot on the east side of the street. And then kind of a little nugget is the Mid-States Insurance building on Oak Street, which has a it's the former town hall lot, and it's a seldom used parking lot. We've had a long-term agreement, well, since we've opened up, agreement with the owners of Mid States as well, which we find to be very convenient and really very close. So that's all I would add.
Thank you, Mr. Price. I mean, you've been here all night. You've got to come forward, right?
Hi, Lindsay Phipps with Strongbox Commercial on behalf of Dr. Nicholson with offices at 65 East Cedar. Again, I'll echo what Matt and Misha explained for the project. Dr. Nicholson's commitments were Monday through Friday until 5 p.m., which have been approved by the BZA per our commitments on the lot. And we will have 6 on-site parking spots and 9 off-site, which is pending the approval of the BZA for this parking agreement with Bob Harris. And that is for the 9 off-site. BZA obviously has approved this agreement. I'm sorry, they have approved the 9 off-site pending this agreement. Dr. Nicholson's expansion has also been approved by Plan Commission and ZARC as well in the last 2 months.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay, board members, you've seen it, you've heard it. Thoughts, comments? Besides the fact that you should open up a parking lot in Zionsville?
Well,
Not really.
is there some mechanism by which these 3 parties, I mean, there are times, I think, when Zionsville Underground might be having parties, restaurant, businesses booming, and I don't think that Dr. Nicholson's operation will interfere, but who coordinates between Zionsville Underground and Cohatch when that lot will be fully used? That's one question. The other is a question, I think, of the parking lot owner, and that is, if you go down there, there's, I'm not sure what they say, 23 to 29 spaces, but it's a mix of pavement, gravel, and dirt. And there's no lines on gravel and no lines on dirt. So I think it'd just be a free-for-all unless it is more properly finished and marked in order for people to know where they're to park when they go down there.
I guess I'd like to chime in. This is the most beneficial thing that could have happened to the town of Zionsville. Mr. Harris is, it sounds like, is in the process of making himself contractually obligated to Cohatch, Nicholson, Zionsville Underground to provide a parking lot with the capacity and the ADA accessibility that is required to meet the needs of all these groups that he's made promises to. Our job is to do nothing but to require all the parties who have contracted for this lot on 45 South Elm to allow the owner of that property to comply with the contracts that he's entered, that these other groups are moving forward with the development of their property.
Yeah, I mean, we gave them direction for each of their individual items, or each of their individual requests, petitions. And as long as they're meeting that, and I think our concern was proof that they're meeting it. And I think we're seeing that they are meeting it. In Cohatch's case, where they can't meet it at that lot, they're finding a way to meet it somewhere else and won't get their certificate of occupancy until they've done such. I think we can endorse that, you know, we appreciate their efforts, but they're just complying with direction we've already given them. And this is the proof of them doing that, so.
Yeah. I would add that I think we needed the proof.
Absolutely.
Yeah, okay.
Absolutely.
Right.
And I want to make sure.
Roger for researching it.
I just want to make sure, when will we see the parking lot?
I don't think Mr. Harris is here tonight.
Okay. I just want to make sure all 3 parties understand that they're not going to get their certificates of occupancy until there's a parking lot.
Yeah, how do we do that? You know, is that what we've asked? Is that what we've?
That's what we've been told. And that's what we've been promised as part of the variances we have previously approved. That these parties would work to make sure that this parking lot existed. We as members of the Plan Commission and as well as members of the BZA have brought up substantial concerns about the lack of developed parking in Zionsville, and everybody keeps promising it's going to happen. Well, the parties who have promised it now need to deliver. And if they deliver the lot, then we're all good.
Roger, how it has, per Mr. Mundy's point earlier, it has been a little vague on how many spots are in this lot. Do you have a number in what the town is working with?
Not that the town has been working with, but different information has been submitted through the different petitions. There have been drawings that show as many, if the lot were fully improved, could hold as many as 31 parking spots. The information presented in the current proposal says 23 to 29. Another challenge that exists with improving this lot to a parking lot, a paved parking lot standard, is that a portion of it, if not most of the area, is within a floodplain, which is going to bring its own challenges.
Guys, I want to make sure everybody understands this is not our problem to worry about.
Mr. Chad, I am not familiar with Mr. Jones' law degree, but I am yours.
Hey, well.
You came from the School of Hard Knocks.
Yes, I did.
I'll jump in and say, I think I didn't see this particular line, but I think Mr. Jones has put a pretty fine point on a concern that we've had. We've required 3, I believe, petitioners to secure parking, and then learned they are all promising parking from the same lot that may or may not be able to deliver that. I understand that then led them to come up with this proposed agreement on how to divvy up these spaces to the extent they are spaces that are in that lot.
I'm telling you.
Despite that interruption, that gets us back to where we are. Really, the question being, is what they've proposed compliant with what you required them to do? And that was to secure, I don't know the numbers anymore, some of these were a long time ago, but we required each of them to go secure some parking spaces. I think Mr. Jones's point tonight is by requiring that means compliant parking spaces. Okay, that's what they've agreed to do. That's what you required them to do. I think Larry's taking it to its conclusion.
Certainly.
My only comment on that is that cars have to be able to legally park there. I think we're all probably can agree on that. And I think it's the case now, and I presume it will be the case in the future. So whatever needs to be done to continue that, I suppose that what will have to be done, but I don't think any of us know what, if anything, there is.
I guess maybe the concern in trying to articulate this is the fact that we've got a gravel, dirt, somewhat paved lot with no lines. And we can do the math on how many spaces we have allocated from this lot. But who knows if those spaces are really there without an actual parking lot.
Again, we have not allocated the spaces.
Well, they have, yes.
Correct.
Parking lot pyramid scheme. Like you're selling parking lot spaces to a lot that may or may not have spaces.
Let me put a point to this. What is the ask? Like,
I think the question to the board is what is being proposed to you compliant with what you conditioned their approval on? And that was to go secure so many spaces. It didn't, I don't have the approvals in front of me, but I don't think your approval was go secure so many places for certain hours of the day, or so long as some other group doesn't want to use them. If you find this to be compliant, then it's compliant. And I think Larry's point is look, we can say this is compliant, but they're not getting a certificate of occupancy until they convince someone at the town that they have in fact secured the required number of proper parking spaces, whether they exist today or not. And correct me if I misstated your view, Mr. Jones.
No, that's entirely correct.
Okay. So board members, are you in alignment with the proposal that these three parties have worked out? I personally don't have a problem with it.
I approve. I approve.
I mean, I approve the proposal. I would go back to Larry's point that the proposal is great if the parking spots exist and are actually in an actual lot. You know, an improved lot of some sort.
Yeah.
So as long as the person that they're leasing them from actually has an improved lot that meets those requirements, then this is fine. If they don't, then that person needs to improve their lot before the lease for these takes effect.
I think that makes sense to me. Okay, Roger, one point of clarification. The lot was discussed on the south of Main Street, and I saw that they were making improvements there, but that's not the intent of that. And this is not, none of these people are speaking for that lot. That is not intended to be a permanent lot.
Not a permanent lot, no.
Correct. It is a temporary solution until that property can be developed.
Unfortunately, I don't have a lot of firsthand knowledge with the proposed use of that lot. So what I do understand is there's consideration that it could be improved for temporary use. It is not intended to be a long-term parking lot that is within the area of the Zionsville Gateway Study area. And I know that that study is not proposing a parking lot at that location.
No, it is intended to be commercial use at that location.
Yeah, but we're taking advantage of the property while we have. Okay. Mr. Chad, do we need to do anything to, I think we've discussed that we are in agreement with. Yep. Okay. Do we need to make a motion on that or?
I don't think it's an action item that requires a motion. It certainly sounds like everybody's on the same page and understanding where we are.
Okay. Are there any other matters to be discussed tonight? Hearing none, this meeting is adjourned. Thank you.